Well, welcome to Reclaiming the Canon, Legally Blonde, the musical. And we have TJ, Temple, and me chatting about Legally Blonde and probably God knows what else. So just stay tuned. It's just how we are. But some of the questions that we will be discussing this evening: show themes, what are they? What do they mean to you? How does diversity fit into this? Is it a good piece or a bad piece? Why is it hard or challenging? How can it fit into a company's diversity plan? Can it be cast outside of the traditional means? Pitfall pluses, favorite parts of the show, and tips to approaching, directing, or performing in this show, plus other things, because people have actually sent in questions. So with that, I am going to stop sharing and say, don't ask.
Snaps.
Dogs
Don't
do
you
that. What?
Like, what is it? Wait a minute.
Delta new. Delta new. All right, Delta new.
Delta new, yes.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Delta.
No.
Delta is the triangle, and then the
The
end.
end.
Right.
Yeah, so Delta new. It's weird.
Delta new, snap. Delta new. Delta new. Yeah.
And choreographing that still gives me angina.
I still have not done the show, and I would love to do it, but there's, as it was done on Broadway, I just preface that, there's really only one role for me, 1.5 roles, but really one role, which is the judge.
Oh, because she's always African American or POC.
Right, and she's not model, skinny, sorority stereotype girl.
I think they use her track also includes like the opening store manager that gets rid of and smaller things throughout the way.
Yeah,
that is I have noticed that with Legally Blonde. One of the things that I like and at the same time could be disturbing but not really is that whenever there is a reference to people of color or a person of color that is slated to be in that role from the inception, the tone of the songs change.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that she's singing in the, at the beginning, the woman that's the judge, when she's singing in the bridal shop or in the dress shop, everyone else is singing, poppy pretty, but all of a sudden here comes this R&B thing that just comes sliding in. I'm going,
well, they also do it with the vernacular. So you have like the one black sorority girl, and all she's like, "Hey, girl," kind of a thing. It's very different than the. And the funny thing with Legally Blonde, to its positive question mark, in that almost every single character in Legally Blonde is a stereotype. And I think that's done on purpose to make Elle not being a stereotype stand out. Because Elle is supposed to be the stereotypical stupid blonde, like that's the point of the story. So her not being a stereotype, I think, stands out because they have made everyone else. I mean, even her parents are stereotypical California, rich, lazy. You have like the stereotypical brunette who's Harvard and strict. Like even the gay storyline is so stereotypical. Like the only non-stereotypical character in the show is Elle.
But she is in the beginning.
Oh, that's right. She is.
She is in the beginning, and it's not until
I think it's on purpose.
It's not until the end of Act 1, I think, when she really starts to get away from that, and that's because of Emmett pushing her. But I think it's really that final song in Act 1 where she starts to really like, I'm going to be something different, and with the sperm case in the classroom.
Oh yeah.
That's,
my favorite song. That's the song. That's my go-to song whenever I'm in a show of like songs I never be able to sing for real. That's my song.
Which is which one?
It's
Chip on Your Shoulder.
So Much Better.
Oh, So Much Better at the end. Oh yeah, at the end. Yeah. Chip on my shoulder. Yeah.
Oh, I love Chip on My Shoulder too. That's a great one. That's a good beat point change.
It's hard. That's where she used that montage, shows the transition over a long period of time in the one song. I think that's well done. It's such a hard show to pull off in general.
Yeah, it is. And I have noticed, no, I haven't noticed anything. So never mind. Go ahead. I was like, I've noticed, and it completely left my head.
I do have a question though, because we are now in the last, let's say 10 years since Legally Blonde came out. The attitude of the general public has changed so much. Everything is a cause. Everything needs to be re-examined and canceled and all this other stuff that's going on. So my question with Legally Blonde, as a person who is not affected by the stereotype, that whole storyline of is he gay or European, is that now considered bad and we can't watch the show anymore? Or is that still humorous for what the stereotypes that it's projecting are? I am curious how people feel about that now.
We touched on this right beforehand too, which is great that you brought that up. It's almost as if
someone sent us that very question. In what ways and when is a gay stereotype considered camp versus it being harmful or offensive? For example, gay or European.
I think
Jay said,
for me, it remains camp because at the end, the two guys are celebrated, and it becomes a positive at the end that we're gay and European, and it's wonderful, and everyone's like, oh, that's what the rest of the crowd has a heartwarming reaction to it. Typically, from what I've seen, I don't think it's actually written in the script but they celebrate, and then the scene change music is typically celebrated with the rainbow lighting, and the two guys are while the scene change is happening behind them, they are down front, and they're the focus, and their love at that moment is the focus. So I think if that had not been celebrated at the end of the song, it would lean a little bit more towards the offensive. But because they have that positive afterwards, for me, the camp remains solid, and all the other, stereotypical jokes throughout the show too just add more weight to the camp of the show. I wouldn't call it a campy show, but the jokes in there for sure.
Well, there are a lot of campy moments. I mean, the entire Ireland thing is just full on camp about Ireland. And so and the ogling of the mail form with the UPS guy, and
our UPS guy was good.
Wow. And then Ricky just ogled him in her mind.
I did. From memory.
Rob White.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Called him out here.
The guy who played it on Broadway is from here. I can't remember his name now, but I know
it was Andy Carl.
Yes.
He's
from Baltimore. He did Toby. I knew
who was married to an L.
No, he's married to the original.
Is it?
Oh gosh, what's her name?
I thought I printed that out.
I can picture the woman in the shop. That's L's becomes Paulette.
Yes.
He's actually married to the original Paulette in real life.
Orfea?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
And honestly, seeing that name, I had to go Google and find, I'm like, that name sounds POC-ish. And it's not.
Did it to you? No, it
To me,
sounded
it did.
really Scandinavian to me.
You know what? I could see that.
Yeah,
I thought Greek, but
Greek is another possibility. Yeah.
So Greek, Scandinavian, and I thought POC. I wasn't thinking African American POC, but yeah.
sure, yeah, different flavors of white. Yeah.
You know, it's funny you say that, because one of my favorite things I've ever seen is it was an exhibit, and we'll get back on topic soon, but it was an exhibit at the Science Center.
Off topic.
And they actually showed skin tones, like the full range of human skin tones. It was this great exhibit about race at the Science Center. And they basically said, if you really actually look at skin tones, it is just a varying ranges of brown. From very, very pale brown to very, very dark brown. It is all variations of brown. And I don't know, yeah, I'm no years old. I am several decades old. And it never occurred to me that the truth of that. And it's so true. Like, every single human being on the planet is a variation of brown. And race itself is a man-made concept.
Ooh, that's deep.
It was really cool. They said if you walk the planet instead of flying over it, the gradual changes of people's skin tones would barely register, because walking it would be gradual and it would just happen. And I was like, yay, Maryland Science Center. It was really cool.
Was that a touring exhibit, or they just pulled it up themselves?
It was a touring exhibit.
Good for them. Awesome.
It was really cool.
Oh, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
Then all I'm sitting here thinking is like these pale gingers that I know. I'm like, yeah, that red, and the red freckling is definitely, is a brighter, lighter shade of brown.
Lighter shade of brown.
Wow.
That sounds like a good song.
Brighter, lighter.
You should write it. A brighter, lighter shade of brown.
Can I sing background vocals on that song when you're ready?
You can be the lead. That's fine by me.
I am okay with that too.
Yeah.
I just felt that maybe a brighter, lighter, pinker shade should sing it.
If the shoe fits.
So I'm gonna throw something out there. So someone texted me this question, and I'm going to ask it. And I already know the answer, but it'll be good. Well, I know my answer, not the answer, but I just know mine. Can Elle be African American and the story still hold true?
I think so.
I think so, but I'm going to say a really rude, wrong thing. And I know that the B Nation's going to come at me. Beyonce makes me say yes, because I could see her both being somewhat vapid and very blonde. And I know the Queen Bee Nation's going to shoot me.
You are being attacked right now by several people.
No, I love Beyonce, but I think she could pull off, not she as an actor, but her persona, you can pull off that blonde, somewhat stereotypical. I'm not digging, I'm being honest.
I'm being honest.
There are people who can pull that off. I can't. I know I could never be Elle. I'm way too sarcastic as a person, and my personality would come out, but I do think it's possible.
So let me share this strange with you.
Oh, you want a little strange?
I did.
Does Greg know?
You know what? That's not what I want. Hold on.
No, I like the Asian Elle.
I was going to say that too. I was like, I wouldn't even stop that question. It's just African American. I would,
Right. I was going to go there, but this was Florida, so she's African American, and they wigged her. But okay, the Asian one is happening I think in the next month. So it is at Ohio State University, I think, if I'm correct. Ohio State University has, no, wrong, I lied, Harvard. There is a young lady at Harvard that works with the Pan-Asian Coalition at Harvard, like little, not club, but that organization. And they are letting her direct Legally Blonde. And she is doing an all Pan-Asian version of Legally Blonde.
Love it. Love it.
So instead of the pink purse, they're carrying Hello Kitty. Like, she's literally bringing in all their culture.
Sweet.
See, here's the thing, and this is going to sound really interesting, and I'm going to add a question to your question. I think it is actually easier to put any particular racial group into the role of Elle than it is to put a full-figured person into the role of Elle. I think it is actually also easier to make Elle transgender, but it adds a whole nother, regardless of whether right or wrong, it does add an extra layer of topic to the show. But I think because it is hard to picture the stereotypical California blonde sorority popular girl as also full-figured, I think it would actually be harder to cast full-figured than any other race.
I would get that. I was looking for a picture because there is a group right now, I think in Florida, that is doing Legally Blonde, and I think it's semi-professional. Again, I couldn't find it. It showed up in one of my Broadway things, and now I can't find it. But it's an African-American girl playing Elle. She ain't tiny. She's not a stick. She's bigger than me. And I'm like, go for it. Now, they could probably give her a better wig, but that's neither here nor there.
Right. I mean, these are good challenges that I would like to see out there. Like, bring it. When I directed it at Silhouette, I remember when we did our casting, people were questioning our Emmett because Matt Wetzel is short. He's very, very short compared to a taller Elle. Whatever her name is. And then short Matt. Like, they were not eye to eye for sure. And it lent a lot of really, but when you let the talent come through and the vocals and the acting, and that was the one thing that I think Matt brought to the role I hadn't seen before was such a humorous Emmett. He wasn't as stuffy. His humor came off as it was
very genuine,
and charming.
Yeah.
He's an amazing actor, but he was not your typical Emmett.
But I love that. I love the idea of Emmett not being your stereotypical leading man, because it stands out against Warner being your stereotypical leading man, and therefore he's not the best man. He doesn't, you know what I mean? I like that.
Our Warner was also a lighter, brighter shade of brown. He was a redhead. Stephen was a redhead.
I will say though, I've always wanted, when I first heard the soundtrack and I first listened to Emmett's backstory, I always thought Emmett should have been played by a Black man.
Which?
Ooh.
Y'all are coming with all my stuff, so hold on. I'm sharing.
I know you're gonna bring him on there. Yeah, there he is.
Yeah.
So Andre Hines, who is amazing professional actor, just did this down at Mill, I think Mill Theater in Virginia, Roanoke, Virginia.
Roanoke, yeah, Roanoke.
Yeah, so he just played Emmett. Do not know who this guy is, but I'm assuming he's Emmett because he's African American. I could not find any pictures of an African.
He's wearing the brown, yeah.
Warren.
The jacket.
And then, I just threw our production with Brooke Wyndham being Summer, African American. And then there's Nia. Remember, TJ, Nia asked a really good question because she had played Pilar before.
She didn't want to join the show again.
Yeah. And because Pilar is very stereotypical of, sassy. And I was looking for anything that would say, when you're looking at the cast list, does it say that Pilar has to be African American? Because they used to do that. And I think they've now removed a lot of that from stuff. So I was trying to find an original one to see if they said Pilar was African American. Because it seems to consistently be cast as African American.
Mm-hmm.
But Nia she asked some very valid questions. She said she didn't want to be the stereotypical, quote unquote, the way that it was written, black role. And I remember TJ and I told her, no, just bring you to the role.
Well, the problem was the last director she had in his directing notes told her to be more black, quote unquote, but without, not that he should say that at all, but he didn't reinforce that with like specifically how you want me to be that way, and it was just, no, be more black. And she was like, it put her in a really uncomfortable place, obviously. And I was like, well, we won't be doing that.
It's so funny. I really wish, if nothing else, if I could get anything else across to people before I leave this earth, I need people to know that all Black people are not a thing. Like there is not a there is a stereotypical. There is no such thing as being Black. And I want
more Black
to know this. I want white people to know this. I want orange people to know this. There are a lot of us, and we're not all the same. We are not all MTV, yo, made a video Black. That is not a thing. That is one way. and unfortunately, I have gotten that direction before. I am not. And usually they don't say Black. Usually they say, be more street.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's always a good one.
Be more street. I have gotten that.
Try to be more ethnic. And you've met me, TJ. I don't pull that off well.
Say that again. You cut out.
I said, I don't pull that off well.
No.
No, that's not in my repertoire. I can pull off a lot of things. That is not in my repertoire.
Wow. And yeah, I mean, there are so many. Oh gosh, you are. I mean, there's so many different characters that could be cast different ways. And I mean, and again, not jumping topic, but a thought process, just a complete flip of things. So Artcentric did Little Shop of Horrors. I had to go like that was like the answer. So they did an all African American 70s version of Little Shop of Horrors.
Okay.
And it was freaking amazing.
I may or may not have a legal bootleg of it. If you want to hear it.
No.
I may or may not have brought a recorder in to record
No,
it.
you did not. However, I will say, what would be, just as an open question, could you do an all African American Legally Blonde?
Yes. I mean, they also did it with Chicago, and it worked really well.
Yeah.
Both of those are period pieces in those time frames. So we are removed from that. Soon enough, Legally Blonde will be a period piece.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's 20 years.
Rent is hitting that. Rent is hitting that now. Rent is finally hitting that now, which is, I think, finally okay to do, because we are removed enough from what it was for the. I mean, I remember watching that tour for at least through 2005 or so, and I needed a break from Rent in order to actually appreciate the show as a 90s piece, because it was still so dragged along. And I think Legally Blonde eventually will get there, where you can set it and you can bring out a lot of the themes from popular African-American TV shows from the 90s too, to pull into it, because that's what they did with Little Shop. Was they, even though Little Shop takes place in the 50s, they set it in the 70s, and Cedric worked his magic on those rhythms and brought out all of those 70s anthems too. Those kept the chord structures, but added in a lot of funk to the bass line that changed it just enough. He also took those regular vocals and just stretched them out and just made them amazing.
Was church.
But
it was church. It was so good.
I mean,
but see, here's what I wonder: can you do Legally Blonde with an all-black cast, not changing it?
I think you can.
I think you can, and I think you should. Just like with the Asian cast or with an Hispanic cast, because I think the problem is too many people assume if it's black, it needs to sound gospel or church, or they need to change the music to 70s or funk. And there are a lot of people who are just trained singers, who are people of color, who can just sing it as written. I think it would be interesting to see it that way, without making it let's make it East LA, or let's do it out of Compton. I think there are ways to just do it as is. Just don't cast it Caucasian. I would like to, and now I'm curious. I'd like to see it.
I'm not seeing any problems with any of the characters. Am I going through is there any character that I know of that would be problematic sticking a person of color into that role? And off the
movie, yes. Anything. The musical, no.
No, I see. And the movie's that's fine.
Nope. Even Paula, I think, would be fine.
She'd be great.
I'm an African American person, and I dream of Ireland all the time. So yeah,
and I dream of marrying an Irishman. I do.
An Irishman.
An Irishman.
I'm not into an Irishman, but I will take a Scotsman any day. Luckily, my husband has walked the dogs. He doesn't.
So, I think. Well, here's a funny little tidbit. Because when we did Legally Blonde, we brought down the original. Natalie Joy Johnson, who played. Why can't I think of the character's name?
Wait a minute. Who did she play?
I know that name.
She was the lesbian student.
Wait a minute. Yes. Hold on. I got it. Wait a minute. Lesbian. This is really bad that I am looking at the cast list and screaming lesbian.
Yes, I remember her.
I can't.
Baltimore? I did not know that.
Yeah. He knows her.
Oh.
Enid?
Learn something new every day.
Was it Enid?
Yeah. Enid Hoops, thank you. Yep, she played Enid Hoops. So she came down, and then she was also the original touring Paulette. So she got the new lyrics that aren't on the Broadway album. because those lyrics are for Ireland are no good anymore. What is good is the London cast recording, the live cast. Those new lyrics are what is used for licensing now. And she toured with those. But she came down and she was saying when they were doing the out-of-town tryout in San Francisco, they had originally done a lovely song between Elle and Paulette about dogs, and dogs being man's best friend and being wonderful, and just, they connected over the dogs. She said, and the audience, was fine. And then she said, all of a sudden they came in with this weird ass Ireland shit out of nowhere. And they're like, I don't know. And somehow that stuck. And, and it comes back, thankfully it comes back later in the remix when they get to that. But otherwise, the Ireland thing is weird, but she's just a Boston hairdresser. And that's all she is, when it comes down to it, who loves her dog. And that transcends anybody.
Yeah, I think they brought the Ireland in because there is such a connection between Boston and Ireland, and they were trying to reinforce the Boston.
Yeah,
but I don't think you needed to reinforce it because Harvard, Cambridge, Boston, Harvard, these are all unanimous together, like all synonymous.
Mm-hmm.
We're having word issues today. So another question came in. It's like my phone's blowing up. So Serena is one of the Delta Nu, one of the trio. Pilar, Serena, Margot. Serena is listed as, your normal girl, man hungry, but she is the only one where they say that she is Jewish.
Okay.
Which can be anyone, regardless of color. But I find that unique that everyone else had their, as weird as it sounds, their identity stripped from the character description, but somehow Serena kept hers.
Now, on the MTI website, I just looked it up. They're not listed. All three of them are not listed in the full cast info. All you get are character breakdown. You get Elle Woods, Ensemble, which is Greek chorus students and Delta Nu members, Emmett, Paulette, Professor Callahan, Warner Huntington III, Vivian Kensington, and Brooke Wyndham. That's all that's listed on the website for MTI.
Oh, well, then they cleaned that up, because this was an actual old one that I printed off from, I don't think it was MTI, but it was, I think it was like 1990 when I found it.
Yeah.
I go to like page 15 on Google, because that's where you find the nuggets.
Yeah.
Well, I think she has a line that's very, again, stereotypes. There's so many stereotype lines in Legally Blonde that's stereotypically Jewish, whether it's like an oy vey or something. There's something in
I don't remember any of that popping out. The only thing I really remember is, at least in our production, our Serena, when they were doing the the Christmas thing during the chip on shoulder, she had the menorah while everyone else was,
That's
Christmas
right.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I mean, again, as celebrating a friend of mine who recently converted to Judaism, who is a person of color, that doesn't necessarily mean you can't be a person of color. There are many people are converting to Judaism currently, as it's a thing right now. But I do find that interesting that was a dictate that they have since removed. I find that more interesting than anything else.
Yeah,
I'd have to look at the script to find out if it's still in that description in the front.
That's what I was looking for, and you can't find that, because there's always that description page where it's like 25, all this other stuff. I can't find that, and I'm like, I don't think I have my original book anymore.
I'm going to pull up what I have as far as like what I've downloaded for a Legally
Right.
Blonde script, but
While
continue.
you are pulling that up, I'm going to ask Temple this question. And then I'm going to walk and check my other Zoom because that's what I do when I double book myself. So the dance break in Positive or the party scene. No,
Ricky, I think there's two separate things.
Yeah, they really are. So let's leave Positive alone. Go to the Jamaican dance break. Is that problematic to have someone? So here's the question. How do you creatively address the problematic nature of the male solo line and the beer bash theme in What You Want? The person thinks that there's an element of tokenism in casting someone of color in that role just because, quote unquote, a white person shouldn't say or do that because it's Jamaican.
I would say there is.
Go with that. I'll be back.
There is some validity to the question, and I only say that because, wow, I know what art piece she has right now that's popping through her background, and that is a problem. Anyway, but not for the reasons you think. I actually think a white person could pull off Jamaican me, create all that stuff, only because in college, and I went to a predominantly white college, I don't know what it is about reggae, but something about reggae, it's like every college boy gets to the second year of college and all of a sudden they become experts in reggae. And reggae is just so cool, man, and they're so into it. So it's almost more a stereotype of white male frat boy college, I'm so cool with the reggae now thing, than it is an actual Black person experience. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they slapped on the Jamaican flag, you know.
Yeah, in their dorm room.
In the background, yeah.
It's like they went to Negril for like spring break one year and they were just like, oh my God, you guys, have you ever heard of Bob Marley? And the rest of the world goes, yeah, kinda. But yeah, I think it is part of the white male college experience for many generations.
And to back that up, I'm looking right at the script where it starts, and Margot says, "This year's theme, Jamaican me crazy." And right underneath, the stage direction says, "Poser frat boy Grandmaster Chad leads a party of gorgeous SoCal girls and boys. Ho, what you want? You want to be up because the sun's she warm," and it goes on from there. Like, so, poser frat boy Grandmaster Chad. I
get that. However, we all know I have Jamaican connections, but there are white Jamaicans. That's not who I married, but there are white Jamaicans. I mean, I get that we're talking diversity, but I think there's a point where you can, in order to break down the whiteness that sits in Legally Blonde, if you flip it too much, unless you're doing like, I would really love to go to Harvard and see the all Asian version. I'm just amazed by how she is just flipping all the little tiny things to represent the Asian culture. I think that's amazing. I would love
Asian culture, but I won't go into all those details.
Hundreds,
but anyway.
It was just an article I read. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't see problems with that because I agree with you, Temple. It really is, I mean, literally sophomore year, all my friends from college, it was like a Jamaican thing. And I am never a bandwagon person. So I then disliked reggae because everyone else loved it.
So I think that kind of harkens back to what I was saying about it being a period piece, but instead of it being a set like decade, it is a set college experience.
Yep.
I think that really harps on that more than it does any kind of problematic with diversity. It's the, hey, you've got your stoners over here, and this is what they're doing, and we're gonna, of course, the sorority girls are gonna bring them in, and they'll be like, oh my god, he's so cute, look at him, he's rapping.
I think that's a really good point, TJ, because those 4 or 5, for some people I know, 12 years of college, extremely unique. Like, there's no time before then and there's no time after that is anything like college. And if I could go back in time.
If I could go back to college.
Right?
I literally think about all the step show parties that I went to that I vaguely remember. Like, I remember being there, but I vaguely remember. And part of my brain, while y'all were talking, just sat here and said, oh my gosh, the band number. Imagine that being an HBCU college. Ooh. Coming out doing, like, you see, it's like, oh my gosh.
Well, I have a funny story for you that relates to this, and it's interesting. So going back to college, I actually caused a problem in college between the Black Greeks and the white Greeks. I didn't
surprise
cause it. I did cause it. And,
sure.
Well, see, here's what happened. The white fraternities for Greek week and in general, homecoming week and everything, they wanted to do like some of my roommates who were Alpha Phi at the time at AO Pies, they wanted to do a ode to every fraternity and sorority on campus. So they wanted to do like a shout out to everyone to give everybody a little bit of love. And they asked me, do I think it would be a problem if they did a shout out to the Black fraternities and sororities on campus? And I said, not a problem, but you have to be careful. And they said, well, we would like to do some step.
No.
Hold on. See, no. But we understand that there are steps that we cannot do because they are associated with that fraternity or sorority specific. So are there things we can do that are very general just to give acknowledgement that we care you're here and we want to acknowledge and respect you? So myself and another theater major who was a Zeta Phi Beta, we gave them real generic everybody day steps, like the kind you would do in high school to do. But you can imagine while this was going on for a full 2 weeks, there was fury on campus. And it was one of those things where I actually got up and I said to someone during a meeting, I said, here's the thing. If we don't meet somewhere, we will never meet. We can't just live on this world of hatred forever. Like it's just they are putting out a hand saying we want to honor you. Let them do it. No, I'm not going to teach them our steps. And yes, my little Sigma Gamma Rho person kept my cane in my house. But
as you said, let them do it appropriately.
Exactly.
And let us guide them to there.
Exactly. Yeah. And that is again something that could only happen in college. Like that's the interesting thing about Legally Blonde. It only can happen in college. It's a very post-college grad school world.
Yeah. Now that you say that, weirdly enough, even though I've choreographed this show and I've watched it umpteen times because TNT loves to play it back to back, it really is college. It really is nothing else but college kids are always trying to find themselves. I remember, am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? Am I this? Am I that? Like you're trying to figure out everything and just happy you out of your parents' house. College.
And drunk. Don't forget.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So.
Yeah, but it's only undergrad for the first quarter of the show.
Yeah, but it's still in a college.
Yeah, but then I mean, you go from college to Ivy League, law school, which is still college because they still have the party, but you can see the difference between the Harvard party, where Elle shows up in the rabbit suit, and the other shoot.
Because I don't think, in HBC, I'm not wearing that.
Here's the other thing, and yes, they would if you dress it up nicely. I've seen a lot of black bunnies.
That is true.
But an interesting thing there, I don't know if either of you saw this movie or even remember this movie.
Keep talking.
But there's a movie called The Sure Thing. It was a John Cusack movie way back.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Pardon me. There is a ongoing stereotype, and again, going back to all the stereotypes in Legally Blonde, between California people and New England people. That is
East Coast, West Coast.
East Coast, West Coast, but it's not even just East Coast because they separate the South.
Yeah.
Northeast. And in the movie Say Anything, he is in sort of that Ivy League Northeastern school world, but he is crossing the country for the California blonde shore thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that stereotype still lives. And I think that is a huge part of the change and shift for Legally Blonde. Because if she went to Stanford instead of Harvard, it would be a completely different tone.
I agree. And I know that they were looking for different universities. I think this was might have been for the movie. For her first university, because I don't think UCLA wanted it at first, and they had to change a lot of things. But anyway, I digress. The East Coast West Coast just as a general is such a huge difference. Still, it always will be. Such the strong mentalities. You got the strong Puritan work ethic, Northeastern style, compared to the opposite, in LA.
Weather has a lot to do with that. As weird as it sounds, weather shapes a lot of why the stereotypes are what they are. Because that's a party girl in a bikini in November in Boston.
No, and that's it's something I remember that always latches out at me is they've got West Coast winter or even the Pacific Northwest their winter fashion, and then you've got the Northeast, which is just your North Face jacket. What kind of North Face jacket you wearing? That is the Northeast fashion for the winter.
Keep going. I was like, I have a question when you're done.
I have a question for Ricky then, though.
Oh, crap. Okay.
If you wanted to take this to an HBCU, would you take it from, let's say, Grambling is her undergrad, and maybe Howard or Spelman, not Spelman because it's all girls, but Howard maybe for postgrad? What's the equivalent UCLA to Harvard for HBCUs?
Would the production company doing it, their location, would that influence it?
I'm curious.
Because if you're doing something from Baltimore, if you're gonna choose a Baltimore production and you want to go that way, you go with Morgan State. I wouldn't use Towson, but
Towson. It would have to be Morgan or Bowie, and Bowie's too tiny. So if you wanted to do Baltimore, it would have to be Morgan. But if you're trying to do the Harvard equivalent, it would be
Howard.
Spellman, Howard.
Yeah.
But
oh gosh, what's the other one in Atlanta that just went out of my head?
Fisk.
No, the brothers school to Spellman.
Oh, Morehouse.
Morehouse.
No, but when you said it couldn't be Spellman, you could do the area because Spellman and Morehouse, they literally intermingle. It's just two separate campuses.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, what would be the HBCU equivalents to that comparison of UCA? Grambling, because of the band and people know it, it's a little bit of a party school. You could kind of pull that off. But that's why I was asking. I was just
or TSU, Texas State University.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So here's a question, because again, I know the three of us, we could talk about.
I went to Towson when it was TSU. That threw me for a few
I know you were like, wait, what? So
I gotcha.
Callahan, and this is a question. Callahan is an antagonist of the show. Therefore, does that give license for him to express problematic ideas? Quote, "Oh, you lesbians think you're so tough," end quote. Talk amongst yourselves.
In general, if you're trying to demonstrate that what he says is bad because he's the bad guy, then yes. If it's just him saying it, but it doesn't have a solution at the end that kind of makes it better, then maybe not. If that makes sense.
Okay. I see the line that statement is sitting on, and that would have to definitely sit with the director's choice to, not that you're trying to make it sit on either side of the fence, but if it's going to sit on the line, it needs to sit firmly on it versus don't be wishy-washy with your Callahan.
I need visually the director to show that the lesbian character that he disparaged maybe feeling a little bit vindicated at the end when it shows that he's a bit of an ass and he gets arrested. You know what I mean? Like, just to bring that full circle to reinforce that he's an ass and what he said was bad.
Yeah, and it's not adding additional. I'm trying to answer her question in the way that I'm saying it. It's not bringing in additional lines or anything like that. It is literally just putting a button on that. And TJ, I think you did that when we did it.
With Ryan?
Yeah. I think
it was Parker, right? Yes, Parker played Enid.
Yes. Parker had a way of visually being disgusted whenever Callahan spoke. Like, just, Lord, here he comes again.
I think, though, I mean, you need him to be disgusting.
Yes.
And I think you need it to be offensive in order for the final assault that he, when he leans in to kiss her, to really fully land, because he fully is hitting on her and leans in and kisses her and actually kisses her. He forces himself on her at that point. I
forgot about that. So yeah, it is.
I think, I hate problematic characters, but I think they're problematic for a reason, because you have to show it's as much for Elle's benefit as it is, disparaging, because you have to see her stand up to him slap him and say, no, get out, and then fight against him later in the court scene.
Yeah.
You know, you have to see that in order for her character to really show that growth.
Yeah.
It's there, but yeah.
I think in this case, you need that problematic character.
And I think it's
problematic characters are a good tool to show bad. I think you can't put a blanket statement that all problem, because we need bad guys. If you don't have bad guys, you don't really have a story most of the time.
And he is a stereotypical problematic character, which is, you know, this is your stereotypical kind of shit that comes out of these people's mouths. You know, which is reinforces everything we were saying earlier about this is a show of stereotypes, and I guess how you can overcome them, or what maybe it's a moral lesson. Like, look, if you're this kind of stereotypical character of Callahan, this is what can happen to you. You know, I don't think that's really the moral they're going for, but you know, that kind of story. But
I think it's there. I think there is.
It is there.
That there. You know, I think
that
your heroine breaks out of the stereotypes to make herself a happier person within who she is and love herself more by the end of it. I think there is a moral to that story.
And we do hear his consequences when Paulette sings about it at the very end, you know, with him getting the divorce and Emmett winning the case against him. You know, you have a little bit of vindication there that, you know, like, yay, the characters went after him and kicked his ass.
Yeah.
And now he's sad Callahan, you know. But
in real life, he goes on to the Senate and stays there for 50 years. But
right, exactly. But I mean, this is also. I just had a train of thought that just left the station without me.
Oh no!
Continue without me. I just I forgot to buy my ticket.
I'm stealing that from you.
Okay, wait a minute.
I got it. Sorry.
Go for it.
So to compare him to another problematic character that I think goes over the line when you go with Thoroughly Modern Millie and Mrs. Mears. She's problematic. She's the villain. She's needed and necessary. And at the time that the movie was written, this was not a thought. Now, when the musical was written, it was starting to be a thought because they clearly laid out for I can't remember the two her henchmen's names, but Bun Fu. And there was the other, but they made a specific choice in the show for them to sing in Mandarin and speak in Chinese.
And broken.
Or English. It's you know it's there specifically. So like they made this choice, but they kept that Mrs. Mears, you know, with the painted white. Geisha face on there. So it's like, where does that line cross? I don't think Callahan ever reaches that point of crossing a line to that level or that degree, which makes him a problematic villain, but not a problematic character, if that is a good distinction.
I like that distinction, actually. I like that a lot. I think we should definitely consider that more often, the problematic character versus the problematic villain.
Yeah.
I like it.
So here is what the Asian L said. I pulled up the article. She said, people didn't expect me to get cast as L, nor did I expect to get cast in it. She cried when the cast list came out and she had to double check to make sure that she actually got the role. And then she held the belief that in her mind, Elle should be white and blonde and basically not a person of color. She had never seen that before. So her thought was that she was going to stick out like a sore thumb. And as an actress, how was she going to exceed everybody's expectations, or are they setting her up for failure? And she said getting into the role of Elle Woods required more than just a blonde wig. She had to swap out her natural sarcasm for a sunnier disposition. She said, usually you'll see me walking around wearing very dark colors. I'm not very smiley, and I have what you call a resting bitch face. But she said, I had to shed that to find myself in Elle, and I eventually got there. And then they go on to talk about the changes in how doing an all Asian version, they're changing the little tiny things that speak to them in their culture. And the last thing she said was that before Crazy Rich Asians, she never saw herself in a leading role that did not involve a poem, which is just classic. Classic, stop putting me in Miss Saigon. I don't know.
Although Lucy Liu in what's the Kill Bill? That's a kick-ass role. That's a kick-ass role.
In Charlie's Angels. I never saw Kill Bill.
Oh,
I couldn't.
Okay.
I don't know why. It just didn't appeal to me. Everyone loved it though.
It's bloody, and it's bloody good.
It is very bloody, and it's, I mean, appropriation. And I don't think I'm saying this correctly. The new, you know what? Because I can't think of her name, it really won't make any sense to even bring that up. So never mind. Gone.
I'm so glad we had this time together.
Are you? Are you? Get to that point, because I don't know where I'm at with that. I don't know how to get there.
So where my brain's not thinking. What else can you think of that could be or should be done with Legally Blonde before we kind of close this out? Are there any other issues that kind of sit and resolve, or that just sit in that hole?
From when you first started the diversity chats, the thing that has stuck in my brain the most is that you did not say, for your point was for theater companies not to start doing, in order to promote diversity, don't start doing The Color Purple and Raisin in the Sun and bringing those specific shows. You want to see people bring a generic show and cast it diversely, regardless of what. And that's what I want to see out of this. Mm-hmm. Is just I just want you to put it in, shake it up and let it fall. And I'd love to see how the story pans out that way. It just, these characters become so much more detailed and rich when you find a different kind of background when you're discovering your character. When you're saying, well, if I am Emmett, like if with Andre, if Andre Hines is going in and saying, I am Emmett and I'm Black, what kind of background does that bring? What can I bring to this character? Which is completely opposite to what Matt Wetzel would bring to the character. I mean, considering they are both also, the height has a big factor in that too. So Temple, if you were to step into the role of Paulette, I would love to hear the background that you have for her. I mean, despite the fact that of what she says, about, oh, I met, Mike Dewey, at the bar. That's your generic, but give me the full character. Like, I want to know, like, what was your upbringing like? How did you get into doing hair?
God, I would love to do Paulette. I love that role.
I mean, it's just it. And I think a lot of people are getting stuck with, because they're comfortable with what they are used to seeing, that it's always a shock the first time they go, wait a minute, there's a Black Elle. It's a shock because you haven't seen it before. And I mean, it's even a shock to African Americans. We're like, wait a minute. Oh, I like this, but I need to, you have to change what you're used to in your mind.
Well, I think that's the point of the diversity chats, is to get us to a point where 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, we're not used to anything. We just cast people who are good at it and let them go and do their job as performers. And I think that would be really cool to see one day.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think everybody brings, I mean, regardless of race, size, height, whatever, an actor's job is to bring their unique take to a character.
Yep.
So do that.
Do it.
Which, going back to my Harvard one, I found that the director said, her goal to create an authentically Asian space extends far beyond casting. She imagined the Delta News, but now singing music inspired by Blackpink. She rethought the iconic purse, now featuring a Hello Kitty design. Paulette's salon was now set in Chinatown. And now all of a sudden, the story looks completely different just by changing how we racialize the bodies on the stage and what spaces we're exploring. And we didn't even touch the text of the show.
And I think the problem with this property is that it was a movie first, and movies are made to be one and done. Here is the way it is, and we're going to do it right. And when you transfer over to theater, a lot of people. Well, let me see. A lot of times in community theater, what I've seen when people do a show, they do a watered down version of the Broadway show they saw when they were 15, or the tour that came through, and they really liked it. And to be fair, that's how I have directed some of my shows. It was like, I saw it like this, and because it's hard to come up with a new concept or idea which includes casting. It's difficult. I'm not saying this to excuse what has been done, but when you have an idea set before you, it's easier to just pick it up and run with it. And I think that's what people are used to doing, especially with something like Legally Blonde. You have Reese Witherspoon, who will always be Elle.
Always.
And that is your first thought, when you think of Elle, you think of Reese Witherspoon, and that's great. But there are so many other options out there. There's a world of options out there, and
it's being courageous enough to explore those options and strive for them. As I tell a lot of companies, and they're just like, "Oh, we want to say we're doing this diverse casting." I was like, "You're going to have to say that more than once. You're going to have to say that a couple of years." I was like, because we're coming from a state where companies were, and we've all done it, tunnel vision. This is how it was in the movie. This is how it was when I saw it on Broadway. If we've been doing that for 40, 50 years, you're not going to be able to put up a sign saying, "Oh, we're casting diversely," and have all these diverse people come out the woodwork. You're going to have to lay some groundwork and just some effort to even trying to do that. And then when you try it and it doesn't succeed, keep trying. So like RMT, they really tried to cast diversely for On the Town. The diverse talent didn't 100% show up, but they're like, okay, how do we take this and transfer it to the next show that we're doing, in terms of keep doing it. Just because it didn't work the first time doesn't mean you stop. Yeah. You have to keep trying, because now you're changing perceptions that not only the audience had of the theater companies, but the performers. If they have come there and they have auditioned for you 5 times and never got cast, they're not going to jump up and down and be like, oh, they said diverse casting. Yes, I'm going to get out of my house and drive up there again, which I've done 3 times and never got cast. Mm-hmm. You got to be willing to take the bumps and bruises to get where you need to go. Mm-hmm. And then the last thing I'll say before I put up my last slide, theater companies out there that are doing the 100% African-American shows that are written by African-American directors for fully African-American cast. I appreciate that y'all are doing this, but why are you doing it when Watch has nothing to do with it?
Oh, it's a Watch thing. I'm not aware of any of that.
I know, but they're not judgeable for Watch. So they're doing them now. I want to see when January hits, are we going to see the same amount of specifically shows for POCs show up on the roster, or are they getting it over with now so that, oh, we did it, y'all didn't show up. Okay, we're going to do Sound of Music. I don't know why I keep using Sound of Music as my line.
Because Sondheim does not write for people of color ever, and that is what wins Watch. Yeah,
Sondheim doesn't
out loud.
Sondheim doesn't write for people.
Just
Sondheim does not write for people. You are correct.
Just people.
Absolutely true.
I think you're right there with the when it comes to January.
What's gonna be on the rosters? I just want to see that.
I'm just gonna say this as Watch chair. I think people are going to roll back to their tried and tested winners.
And I mean, I get it. I always say meet people where they are, and that's why I keep having these conversations, because I think having them helps. Not all, but helps some. Oh, okay, I can do that. I can do that.
I think you should meet people at an arm's length, not where they are.
I kind of love that. You're not completely wrong.
Because you don't want to go exactly where they are.
You want to make
because they don't want to go exactly where you are. So why you should be able to both reach out, touch a hand, and if you happen to tug a little bit harder than they do to pull them over, so be it.
That's a good perspective. I'm a noodle on that a little bit.
That shit just fell out of my mouth and I don't know where it came from.
I'm a noodle on that for a little bit, because I'm like, I get that. That's not what I've been saying for a year and a half, but I get that.
I am going to adopt this idea. I like it.
I think I'm going to start it as well. At arm's length, and that doesn't mean keeping them away at arm's length.
It's just understanding the spatial awareness of where we're both coming from to meet. Okay.
I'm going to say something controversial for the DC metro area, and then I'm going to run away.
Absolutely.
Don't you run away.
I'm going to run away right after I say it. I'm going to say this.
Oh, Lord.
This issue is more important than winning a Watch Award.
Oh, well, that's easy. Yeah.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people that won't get that. So I'm just putting it out there. Making a more diverse comfortable space for people is more important.
And it will eventually, if you let it be, get to a space where you will actually win more awards.
Yep.
Because it's not going to have a bevy of talent that you were not aware of.
You just got, yep. I mean, that's been.
And I will have more people that I have to beat down for a role. Yeah.
Oh, honey, I'm getting to an age now where I can't even beat you down. I realize no roles are written for people my age. I have to get to 80 and then I'll be castable again. It's fine.
No, just 50.
I'm kidding. I'm just.
I mean, I'm being asked to, we're doing a role where someone's dying. Can you put, okay, thank you. Really? I didn't know I looked that old, but okay.
One day we will do a diversity chat about the trajectory of women and aging in the theater and in the arts. We'll do that one day because there's a whole conversation there.
And my favorite, she can't play Jo March. She's old. At least he didn't say that I was Black. So at least it was because I was old. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Who wants to be a little wimp?
Hold on. Before we do that, let me do this so that I can. Wait a minute. Yep, the last slide. Let me. While y'all laugh.
Temple, breathe, Temple, breathe.
I can't.
I thought from earlier. I'm sorry. The nice thing okay, so we were talking about the mindset of what you've seen on Broadway and recreating it. The nice thing is, like with the new Oklahoma, the new Crazy Sexy Dark Oklahoma has wonderfully diverse casting, which also includes handicapable people, and it's like, and it's touring. And I hope that, I don't know, the tour cast looks absolutely brilliant too. They look absolutely lovely. I'm hoping that more people will see that show, this classic Rodgers and Hammerstein show, and see how you can cast it successfully as a diverse cast. And
Arena Stage does that quite a bit. I will have to say, Arena Stage will flip some crap on its ear, and I'm like,
well, when it's Corbin Blue and anything goes, of course, who's going to say no to that? It's Corbin.
Yeah, he's just the male version of Beyonce. I get that. So, hold on. Okay, what? Before I hit the slide, what?
They announced the casting for the Britney Spears musical that's going to be at the Shakespeare Theater Company. Mm-hmm. Justin Guarini is going to be in it.
Really? The original?
From Justin to Kelly?
Yeah, that's what he is. The original runner-up is what he is.
He's the first loser. That's
first loser. But I'm glad that it took him 20 years to come back to where. Okay. Anyway.
Oh no, he's been doing stuff for a while. It's just terrifying.
Not good.
He wasn't doing anything good on the show either. What's your point?
Okay, you know what? Hold on.
we got a slide.
Yes. Reclaim. And I'm gonna stop the recording because I'm pretty sure we're about to say something that should not be on it. So thank you all for joining. And Lord, if I can get these three back again, this is a podcast. So
oh my goodness.